Call the Mayor and Council meeting to order. It's 7:30 p.m. on the dot. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the Mayor and Council meeting of February 17th, 2015.
I'll move that the minutes as submitted be approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that we unanimously approve the minutes. Our second order of business is the payment of the bills.
I would move that we pay the bills as submitted.
I second that.
Do you have a question?
I have a question about the bills. Well, actually, it has to do with the cash balance and the bills. The very last item on the payment of bills is the payment for the renderings of the marina.
Yeah.
And we agreed in our minutes, or at the meeting of December 1st, that that money would come from the Washington College funds.
Yeah.
And they're not so shown on the
Okay.
cash statement. So could that be correct?
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay. That probably didn't get the word on that.
Yeah, I figured that's probably okay.
Okay, so there's been a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor
Aye.
Amended, yeah.
of the amendment? Any opposed?
I oppose the $4,000 come from the Washington College Fund, and I said that when we voted on it.
Okay, so it passes with a 4-1 vote. Okay, that brings us to item number 3 on the agenda, which is something a little different. We are continuing our discussion about the iSign. This evening, one of the potential providers of the software that could revitalize the iSign if we choose to go that route is a company called Four Winds. And Robert Pearson is actually on the line right here. And we are doing something that I don't think has ever been done in Chestertown's long and illustrious history, something called a go-to meeting. So we're going to go to Robert, and he is virtually going to, from Denver, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So from,
Actually, my quick background, I'm born and raised in Mobile, Alabama, and I've been in Denver, Colorado for 34 years.
so Mobile resident and 34-year resident of, Mobile native and 34-year resident of Denver, Colorado, Robert Pearson is going to walk us through a little PowerPoint that he's put together for us so that he can tell us sort of a little bit about Four Winds and some of the capabilities that their signs have. So without further ado, take it away, Robert.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Also joining me on the call is Lucas Baeza, who is one of our senior sales engineers. And Lucas will be there in the event that we have some additional questions about any engineering-related questions. But anyway, welcome and thank you, everyone, for inviting us. And thank you, Nancy, for putting this together. I've been in touch with Nancy quite a bit over the last month and a half or so. So looking forward to going through this PowerPoint with you and taking some questions. So I'll go ahead and get started. That's a picture. Is that your one of your veterans of Chestertown Park?
Yes, that's correct. It's called Memorial Park.
Memorial Park, very nice. Well, great. A little bit about Four Winds Interactive. We are a company that is now 9 years old. We are a visual communication software for trying to give an expression of what we do. We help improve the experience using our software to deploy through signs, all types of information. Like I said, we've been around for 9 years, and we're not only just a software company, but we're also a company that provides services. We help with hardware in all kinds of instances, whether it's a small meeting room type sign that you might see in a large hotel or a casino. And we also do large video walls as well. So something you may see that could be in an airport in a foreign country. But we're definitely a company that's here to stay, and we continue to grow. We've got over 305 employees now, and that continues to make pace. I've been with the company for 2 years now, and I think we were at 230 at the time I started, and that was 2 years ago. So with that, we're in multiple industries. There are all types of industries: government, education, casinos, cruise ships, all using the whoever their audience might be. And so with that, we have over 4,200 customers in all of those industry verticals. And we've deployed over 150,000 displays. We don't have proprietary hardware. We work with all the top hardware companies in the world, Samsung, LG, NEC, to name a few. And with that, we have gathered a lot of experience and relationships with those companies to offer their hardware to our customer base. We're in 64 countries. We've got our corporate office is here in Denver, Colorado. We also have offices in multiple areas around the globe, and also another office in Miami Beach. So we continue to expand, and one of the things that we're kind of proud of is that we've been recognized in Forbes magazine for about 3 years in a row as being one of the fastest growing privately held and privately owned companies in the digital signage software market. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit today. Like I said, I've talked to Nancy about your existing signage that you have there that is in need of some new software applications potentially to help put it back on track. I'll talk to you a little bit about our government solutions and the benefits, of course, of visual communications and how it does appeal and help your audience. And then, again, we'll talk a little bit more about our experience. So visitor communications, and we'll go through these slides, and then I'll take you guys questions. But obviously, one of the things you want to try to do is put some information out there that can help educate who your audience might be, trying to gather information about what downtown Chestertown is about, with potentially a welcome screen or just exhibit information where they can come up and interact with the sign, be pulling data directly from the downtown Chestertown website, where there's always great material. Could be educational videos that might have just historical information about Chestertown. All of these are ways that you can reach out and communicate without having to be there and get information as you walk by your outdoor sign that you have currently. They're just trying to improve that experience. And we've worked with, like I said, a lot of different government entities for all types of, as you see here, the 9/11 Memorial uses our digital signage software to deploy a lot of information to all the visitors in Manhattan. Another way is workforce communications. These are just some of the applications that digital signage has helped with, and trying to align a workforce to put out statistics about something that's happening, specifically anything related to downtown Chestertown, where there are announcements or events or things that are going on. If you have an interactive sign, an individual can come up and have that favorable experience by coming up, touching the screen, looking for information that's important to them or whatever they're trying to find without having to go physically. They can go to your website as well, but if they're walking down the street, it's a perfect way to communicate and give information to visitors. So workforce communications is just one other way that you can use for the Forward software. It's obviously something that can be used across all types of experiences for whoever it might be, and that's one of the things that you're not held down to doing one thing. You can do a ton of different things with the software. Facilities management is another way, providing updates on information, and we see that sometimes with government entities that maybe they're trying to get court docket information out to visitors that may be having to go look for some of that information at a desk or something, another location. Here, having sort of a concierge gives you the opportunity to put that information out there, and we've done that in a lot of different ways. One with District of Columbia Courts and in Sacramento, but the main thing here is that this information and these all the things that you're trying to create and give to your visitors can be done at one location using an enterprise software solution like ours. So quickly about who we are again. In the center, you see Four Winds. We're a software company, of course, but we also provide content so that you're not having to rebuild, build a sign from scratch. There's a lot of different ways using what we call FWI Store that has templates and designs where you can repurpose those and put them in place for what you're trying to do. So when you do purchase our software, there is a starting point. There's obviously a learning curve, but there's a lot of ways that we can help you deploy that sign and help build that sign with or without our help, and that's where the services come in. We work with all types of entities, again, in different industries to help them. We offer our services there, professional services for creative, for images, for whatever it might be. So again, one of the three services there. And then finally, hardware. We have probably sell somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $15 million worth of hardware every year now that we have grown to where we are today. And again, we vet that hardware working with some of the top technology companies in the world. And then one of the things that you see on the right-hand side is how do you engage that audience? And there's multiple ways in which you can through a virtual concierge. Could be menu boards that are used in dining halls, maybe in schools, or even in restaurant locations. Just leaderboard information could be just relevant information that you may not want to have. An interactive sign, just a sign that gives information out about something that's going on. Just multiple ways in which you can use it, either with an interactive or a non-interactive. And on the left-hand side, you see these are some of the areas where we utilize content from local area networks that already have content that someone may be managing the directory, someone may be managing an event management software. All of these types of content and data can be driven through the Four Winds software, and you can pull in an RFS feed from CNN or Fox News or whatever it might be. But all of these are ways of utilizing content without having to build it from scratch. Any questions for anybody right now, or you want me to keep going here?
I think just keep going and we'll fire away some questions at the end.
Great. Quick snapshot of some of the industry-leading customers that we have in the government entity. This just gives you sort of an overview of who we have and who we work with. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 different customers in government and government-related entities. So we'd like to just show a little bit about our experience there by showcasing some of the customers that we work with, like the FDA. So there I have just kind of given you a brief overview, and again, like I said, we talked about what the solution might be to get your sign back up and running. I know that's one thing that the mayor, as well as other people that are participating in the effort, are definitely interested in learning more about and how you can get that back on track. So I was going to do sort of a sign tour to show you some images here, if that's something that you guys are interested in.
Sure.
Just to give you sort of an idea of some of the things that we do. This is one that's in the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton in California. Again, what was their mission? Their mission was to guide people around the facility. So with that, we put together, with their help and with their maps and images, we took their images and took their campus map and allowed us to have a campus plan and a way for individuals to come up to these signs in multiple locations with different orientations to come and find different areas by clicking on what they're looking for and getting to those locations. So it just gives, it's an easy way, sort of a campus concierge, gives you the opportunity to find where you're going. You can do it with a static map, of course, in your hand, but it's also, this is a way of doing it in a more visually appealing manner. A lot of this information, if it's done with what we call QR codes, if you're not familiar with that, it's the barcodes that you see. A lot of times in certain instances, if you want to, you can put a QR code right next, somewhere around here on this particular display. When that person maps to the specific location that they're going to, then they can capture that information, put it on their handheld device, their smartphone, or whatever it is that they're holding. Again, events, showing areas where the events are, what's taking place. All ways of using the wayfinding component of Four Winds, as well as just having that information, for you to use. Another area that we are certainly involved in is the hospitality industry. And many of you have probably traveled to a Courtyard Marriott, and we have over 700 locations. We drive what they call their patented Go Board. And the Go Board is basically just that, a virtual concierge that allows you to go up to the board without having to interact with anybody. As you all know, I say that 90% of the time when I go downstairs, the front desk at a hotel is pretty busy, either checking people in or checking people out. This gives you a way to come in and interact and find things about breakfast that you may want to look for a location nearby. It could be something that's in the exact location that you're at. You can always click the back button and go back to find what you're looking for. It could be a Starbucks. So all of these are ways in which, you can take and use our software to deploy information that's relevant to whatever your visitor base might be. Again, in your case, it's going to be the visitors, the people who live in Devon, Chesterton, and also the people who come there to see what a pleasant place. I've never been, but I'm sure by the pictures I've seen, it looks pretty awesome. So, just a few examples of how the software lends itself across, different entities and different industry verticals. And, like I said, one of the things that's definitely on your list of things to do is to try to get the sign that you have back up and running and in good shape. And for our software, we certainly know and feel like that's something that we can do quite easily and help you guys get it on.
Can we talk price for a minute? Because I know some of the information I was given, it was quoted as, the initial cost was in the neighborhood of around $3,200. And then there was an annual maintenance fee of about $1,300. Is that accurate?
A couple of different ways, yes. So an interactive licensing, it has changed a little bit, not much, but that's the general ballpark of what it would cost to have that license. You can host it on your own server if you want to, but we also offer the 4Winds Cloud, where you don't need to have it hosted on your server, a database there. You can actually access it through our what we call the SWI Cloud. So both of those ways, allow you to, the software itself, in your case, would be what would drive it in the event that you wanted to, have budget to spend more for us to help you develop the display. We could certainly do that at an additional cost. But yes, that's pretty much what it is. With the hosted version, it's an annual fee and any other fees for our annual maintenance, which takes care of support, 24/7 support, as well as any version updates that happen to our software. And we do one major or two major versions about every 18 months, and then many versions or updates of those along the way, and all of those are part of what you get. So you stay in lockstep with our technology as opposed to having to go back and pay for an additional type of license. So a one-time fee and annual maintenance if you host, an ongoing annual fee if we host for you that includes the annual maintenance.
So just to be clear, in year one, it's a $3,200 fee to purchase the software, and then is there an additional $1,300 in year one? In other words, would the cost of us getting this going be $3,200 for the first year or $4,500 for the first year?
So the first year would include, and I'm not looking at that exact estimate, but it would include the one-time fee if you host.
Correct.
And then the 18%, which is pretty much the industry standard for the annual maintenance. And the maintenance, of course, is the 24/7 support as well as the upgrade. So if you have a $1,000 software application, then you pay the 18% of that $1,000 each year. In the hosted model, it's going to be an annual fee. So there's two ways of purchasing it, which would be you hosting it on your own server and paying the 18% every year. You only pay for the license the first year. So the first year includes the license and the annual maintenance. Year two is the annual maintenance only, and the same in year three.
Do you guys have any other questions?
When it comes to the content, is there a way for us to manage our own content, or do we always have to go through 4Winds if we need to make any updates or if we want to change the formatting?
you don't have to go through Four Winds at all. What we would certainly want to do is include some cost in there for a training package. Training packages start at $1,000 and go up from there. Each one sort of has, exactly what we would do to train. Most institutions that I work with end up getting what we call the bronze package, which is $1,800, which usually gets the users enough information for them to go build their own displays once they've been trained. And we also have what we call the FWI Wikipedia or Wiki, and the Wiki has, I think, over 65 or 70 different videos that are training videos, but also information about everything that you would do if you had someone that was resourceful enough that wanted to go and build a sign just by taking the software, getting the software loaded in the appropriate location, and then going from there and start building the display. And then in this situation, we have a new product that just came out. We offer the content, which is called FWI Store, where these buttons that you see that are here now, you can change and repurpose them, you can put your own colors in there, but behind building that part of it, you don't have to really do that by using the printer. You've got the home screen, you got the people directly, whatever you want to use, but behind each one of these buttons, information is being pulled from your database. You can update that locally, as you normally do. If you have, let's just say that Tim Archie is no longer at this location, and it's not that phone number. This information is being pulled more than likely from a directory file, or it could be pulled from an Excel spreadsheet. And if someone that's in charge knows that Tim is not going to be in this location anymore, they simply make that change, and it automatically puts, Alex Acosta would be in his location. So you certainly manage everything on your own. The wayfinding is not extra. None of this is extra. It's all part of the software. So in the event that you decided that you did want to do some wayfinding around downtown Chestertown and put a map in place like this, it would be your city map or whatever map you have available. You take that map and simply plot these locations using an Excel spreadsheet. Obviously, you need some training for that. But in any case, if any of these locations changed or anything changed about it, you have the ability, without working with Four Winds, to make those changes on your own. The software allows you to do that. In this case, we have something new, which is the wheelchair for what it does is it brings the information down in the event that someone does wheel up to the sign. This application for ADA compliance allows that individual to click on the ADA compliance symbol and bring the information down. Again, all of this is just built into our software.
Okay, I think I have another question here. I have another question here for you, Robert.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so I was wondering whether your software can link to our town website, which we've just put a huge effort in. It's a brand new website. So for example, our kind of definitive event calendar is on our website. Would your software just link to that, or would it be then necessary to update the calendar in two different places?
No, it would pull directly from your local area network where the information that's driving your website. And I'll let Lucas, maybe if you want to jump in on
Okay.
about how that would work. Definitely. So if you wanted to play your website, including what page containing the calendar, you could certainly do so. But another benefit of our software is the ability to integrate with third-party data systems like event management systems. So it'll pull that data live from that system without having to go through a website.
Okay.
Okay, I have another question.
You're going to use our device and just change the software, is that correct? The one that we
Yeah,
have?
that's the intention.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do we get any credit for the fact that we have a device already, or is this price that you're giving us, giving it to us because we do have that device? I mean, what would it cost us if we didn't have it and we decided to have you install something?
If you did not have a display, an interactive touch display that you have currently, because it's an outdoor display. The only examples that I could give you would be the Tanger Outlet Malls, and I had talked to Nancy about this earlier. We do, I think, probably 75 locations of the Tanger Outlet Malls where we have interactive displays outdoors at their locations. So you would have to buy from us that technology, and that technology is not simply just a display. As you might imagine, you couldn't put a display that you purchased someplace outside. It's weather contained, and it would be an additional cost for sure. And something like that, it ranges anywhere from $30,000 to $45,000, depending upon the size of the display, because the technology is all patented. It's heat and weather resistant 100%. So in order for us to warrant that to the people who have developed that outdoor display, the costs are definitely, you're paying for some patented technology. But yeah, so your display, and we've done a quick site survey of your display, and I know that there are some things that need to be repaired there as well, but as far as being able to drive and move our software display on that display, that could happen 100%.
So if you said it was the display that we have currently is weather resistant, why was it that it broke down so quickly? Is this a hardware problem with the display, or is it a software problem? I mean, what caused our system to deteriorate so quickly?
Well, I'm not familiar with yours, other than I think there was someone that you hired or put that in place about 3 years ago. So I wouldn't know about that technology. But it was not the software, of course, that does that. It was weather elements, anything that has to do with the design of that particular outdoor display, again, which I'm not familiar with. The one displays that we work with are called Vertigo. I know them very well. You can actually, on some of them, you can take and throw a baseball at them, and the protective parts on the outside allow it to be somewhat vandal-proof. But they are a very sophisticated piece of technology. And again, with our system and why they cost so much is because they're delicate. The ones, if you ever get a chance to see the ones that are Tanger Outlet, it's a very impressive product. But in your situation, my guess is that it could have been some fault in the design, potentially, and I wouldn't be able to know.
I have one more question. I think we may need to move on because we have kind of a full agenda tonight. But
Okay.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I have two sons, 10 and 13, and they get all their information from mobile phones. And I think one of the chief arguments against us in reinvesting in this sign that's kind of, it's stuck in one place. Why invest in your company and not just in an app for a mobile phone for Chestertown? What would you say to someone who said that?
Well, it's certainly another way of using a digital sign. But I mean, an application like that, if you wanted to have it pulled just directly from your website, you could certainly do that. The sign is going to do a little bit more than your website would. In the event that you did want to utilize, an events directory and things like that, and also the wayfind mapping would be probably something that would be a little bit cumbersome to put together inside an application like that. And you can actually capture the information that you see here. In this particular one, you can capture the information using a QR code to that phone or handheld device. So again, why would you do it? It's a much different application than just a phone. And if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, Lucas, feel free.
Definitely. So a lot of the signs are more or less meant to be used in parallel with your other forms of communication. So that includes things like mobile phone devices. A lot of the information that you would have on an application, you could also include in the phone. They could be pulling from the same data sources there. They could be playing the same information in parallel. So it's not really like one would be better than the other, like they're replacing each other. It's right there on the street, immediately available. Whereas the application you need to either already have or go download.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for taking the time. I know you also had a trial run earlier today, so you put in a couple hours here of work to join us virtually, so very much appreciate it. And
Hey, it was our pleasure, and thank you guys for your interest in Four Winds. And if you have any questions, please let Nancy or the mayor know, whoever's going to be involved in communication. Happy to help you.
okay, thank you very much.
All right, have a nice evening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good night.
Take care, bro.
I want to also thank Jen and Case, because they put a lot of time into making this possible and bought new phone cables and ran wires. And it's Chestertown, so we're trying to get back here in the 21st century, but sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort. Before we move on to the next agenda item, is there anybody else in the audience that wants to make any comments? Like Bernadette, I know you were, pretty closely involved when we obtained the sign initially. Is there anything you'd like to say? Because what I'd like to do is at our next meeting on March 16th, now that everyone's had their chance to say what they want to say about the I-sign, we've heard from Four Winds, is we need to start making decisions about what to do.
My thought is I was in support when the sign was first introduced to Chestertown and helped find grant money to purchase the equipment and software. And one of the things that was very interesting to me was that the investment that we've made in the actual equipment, the outside equipment, is pretty significant. If we were going to start this, Marty, it was a great question. If we were going to start this from scratch, in addition to that $3,200, we would be looking at, we said, between $30,000 and $45,000. And it looks like Chestertown did get a very good piece of equipment at the time. So it's ready to operate. It just needs the software, and that's where it broke down, it sounds like. And, for an investment like that, to be able to get more information out to visitors, that's the key. So using several different device platforms is the key. I mean, we use so many different marketing tactics as it is. This is just another tool that we can use to drive business in Chestertown. So whatever the council, whatever the town decides, we'll support and help however we can.
I just want to say this while it's not. I think that maybe that's the problem. Unfortunately, is it looks like part of the failure with the initial effort was with the hardware, and one of my concerns is like he made it pretty clear that piece of hardware is the key to the whole thing. I mean, unless I was mishearing him, and I hate to say it, but it may be that the hardware that we have, this stuff also gets outdated so quickly.
Very quickly.
I mean, that piece of hardware is now, I think 2011 was when it was purchased. So that's I'm just going to say on the record before we decide, that's a concern of mine, is that we may be putting money after bad money that, that's something that I think we really need to think about.
I tend to agree. The government operates too often on sunk money. We got so much money into it, so we have to add more money to it. That's why battleships end up costing 5 times what they should be, because they initially get a price and then it keeps going up and going up and going up. So, it sounds good on its face, but will it work? That's the whole problem, and that's what concerns me.
Do we know that it was the hard? Do we know that?
Well, I know that it was.
He did a review, didn't he? I thought I heard him say he was 100% sure that this software would work.
Well, I'm sure he could get it up and running. I know you were there for when they were in town.
Yes, they were here in town, and we turned the sign on and it worked. And I think it's also important to clarify a little bit what the $3,200 is buying and, what is left over from the old sign, if you will. The sign has 3 principal parts. It has a little itty-bitty computer has software in the computer, and it has an LED screen. We will be getting from Four Winds a new little itty bitty computer and software. What we have left is the LED screen, and then the kiosk that was built to hold the LED screen. So we are getting some new hardware / technology. We are going to have a 2011 LED screen.
Right. Bob?
And my concern with, I know that, and I was there partly when they were here evaluating the sign, but it didn't use the touch. We weren't able to set it up so you could see how the touch worked. And that to me is critical to this sign. If the touch, in its outdoor case, if the touch works properly, then that's one thing. If it doesn't, then there is an inherent problem with the case and the touch screen
Aspect of it,
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about. And before you spend any money on it, if there's some way to test the touch part of it.
I agree with you. When the gentleman came and gave us the original, I was here when he gave the original presentation. It wasn't a touch screen thing. He was doing it in some other method. So I suppose it worked at one time. I never saw it work correctly. I'm sorry, Nancy, I know it might upset you, but I never saw it work correctly. And I went down there shortly after it was installed. Admittingly, that I've said before, and the council knows, I'm a little challenged when it comes to those things. But pushing little things, I couldn't get it to do anything. So, and that was shortly after.
I had a similar problem with it oftentimes, not most of the time.
And we can't forget the cost of training too. I mean, that's going to be an additional, and who on the staff is going to be trained? Do we train one of our staff? Do we train our web developer? So, I mean, that's another cost. That's another thing that we have to factor in. I mean, it sounds like we can go through them and they can develop the content and kind of, have jurisdiction over everything that's put on there. But I also like to kind of have some control over things that we are doing to promote Chestertown. And if we don't get somebody trained, that means we have to deal with somebody in Denver every single time we want to make an update to our signage. So I think that's another factor that we really have to consider for next week's decision or next council meeting's decision.
Okay, any other comments?
Does anybody want to look into the cost of moving it here, out front?
Or elsewhere. I think that's one of the things you discussed in your last meeting was the idea of where else in town without, I'm still concerned about the sunlight. I mean, obviously, I think that we should be concerned about the screen, the hardware, the software, but mostly the screen because that's the thing that seemed to fail the first, from either bright sunlight or by failing to operate, as you gentlemen have said. So I just don't think it does well in the sun, and I doubt, I mean, maybe these people have the technology, but they're not replacing the screen.
All right, well, here's what I'd like to do. At our next meeting, March 16th, the first thing that we need to decide is, are we willing to spend the money? Because if the answer to that is no, then we simply need to remove the sign and we can talk to DCA about where it goes. And they can decide what to do with it. If we do decide that we want to spend 1/3 of the fee, then
That's the point I wanted to make. It's 1/3.
if we decide, yes, I would say it's 1/3 of 3,200 or whatever it's actually more than that if you factor in the training. It's 4,200
So I was going to ask
plus.
that. So what's the commitment on cost sharing? It's not all on us. What do we have?
I would suggest it would be 1/3 county, 1/3 town, 1/3 DCA.
Well, Mayor, I have the okay to do the 1/3 to get it up and running.
In the first year, but not necessarily for the following year. Okay. So that's something to consider. So at any rate, if we decide that we're gonna allocate the money, the next decision is where do we put it? If we decide we're not gonna allocate the money, I think we all agreed that that can't be the spot for the sign.
Correct.
And it needs to be moved, so I think we would just remove it, and then we could talk quietly behind the scenes about where it is.
I don't think there's any disagreement that that's not the location. I mean, you could start tomorrow taking it down. It wouldn't bother anybody that I know of.
That's true, but
I
let's,
don't think.
I'd rather just do it all in one.
I suggested, well, I had somebody suggest to put it right out front, here where it's covered.
But that's getting ahead of the game, because if we're not gonna spend the money to start it up, why even have that
I
discussion?
understand that, but I mean, as another,
I think that's a
as another
decent option.
outside location, it would be accessible 24/7
And somewhat protected.
and protected.
Well, let's take 2 weeks to think it over. We've heard from everybody that had anything to say about this, and we will be making decisions in 2 weeks over the fate of this sign. Which brings me to the next order of business, which is the town manager's report. Bill Ingersoll.
All right. And I have a guest here, Case DeMoy. I'm going to skip over this corrected mapping errors because that was just, seems to be a carryover from the last meeting. It's been accomplished anyway. So Case is here to talk about the comprehensive plan. I think there's some people here concerned with it.
Okay. Well, I started to give this presentation back in September. At that time, the Planning Commission had held its public meeting as required by law. Public comments were received, and then we responded to Washington College's concern that they would like to have more time to look at the plan, and so we granted a 2-month extension, and at the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission took all of those public comments, went through them piece by piece, and approved or denied the requests that were submitted for inclusion into the comprehensive plan. To step back for a minute, the last comprehensive plan was written in 2009, was adopted in 2009, and a lot has happened since then. Gilchrist Rail Trail, of course, we now have phases 1 through 3 that have been built. Margot Bailey Community Park has the dog park, of course, and a lot of other features. Remembrance Park was constructed. We've got the Gateway Park that's about to be constructed at the north end of town. The traffic circle, which was just completed, residential infill projects. And then we've got a lot of ongoing projects, Kent Plaza, Redner's, and of course the Washington College waterfront, which is going to see some major work. Of course, the marina as well. There were a lot of improvements have been made to the new plan over the old plan. We've had other things happen as well. In the meantime, we've had comprehensive rezoning, which was done in 2012, as reflected in the new zoning map. We've got a new tier map, which is a Maryland Department of Planning requirement to help determine where future growth will go. We've also had the municipal growth element and the water resources element. Those were done in 2010. Those did not change in this particular version. We had our public input, and we've got new technology since the last comprehensive plan. We've made a lot of use of GIS to create better maps that I think are easier to read. And we've got increased focus on pedestrian and cycling connectivity, and then current issues such as stormwater, sustainability, sea level rise, and so forth that are reflected in the plan. The state of Maryland requires that all comprehensive plans have certain elements. So that is the case with this comprehensive plan. You've got land use, transportation, public facilities, sensitive areas, mineral resources, historic resources, municipal growth, and the water resources element. You can add more elements, but these are the core pieces that the state wants to see. Here's an example of how the mapping changed between 2009 and today. You'll note that the map is visually, it works quite well, but it can be pretty difficult to orient yourself on this map exactly, for instance, where the town boundaries are and so forth. Whereas in the newer version, for the planning boundaries, they're bounded by major roads and split up into 5 quadrants that make a lot more sense from a planning perspective. Likewise, the existing and planned land uses maps left a lot to be desired. I think pretty good for that day, but we can do a lot better with GIS technology, where really on a parcel by parcel basis, you can look at the sorts of uses that are in place in that left-hand map for what's its current land use. And then likewise, looking into the future and taking the zoning categories and lumping them into broad categories, seeing what sorts of land use we can expect 5 years from now, 10 years from now. In the transportation plan, we took the town and divided it up into 3 areas and then analyzed each area quite carefully for where are the existing sidewalk, for instance. Those are those solid blue lines. And then looking at the, especially in the east where we've got a lot of the infill projects happening, where do we want the road connections to be? Where do we want to see sidewalks, trails, and so forth? And of course, the bypass location showed there in red. And then the last section, which includes Stepney Manor and the waterfront. Again, what's important with these maps is that they're not definitive as far as what is going to be built. They're not necessarily prescriptive. They're planning documents, so they're just stressing existing conditions and some of the things that are worth considering moving forward. So the next steps, very simply, are number 1, we need to, the Planning Commission at its last meeting recommended that the plan be forwarded to the Mayor and Council for adoption by law. You must act within 60 days or the plan essentially adopts itself. So you have 3 choices essentially. One is to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission and adopt it. Number 2, you could adopt it in part. And number 3, if you feel like there's more work to be done on the plan, that you would then kick it back to the Planning Commission for further consideration. The second part of this is that in other jurisdictions, the different planning documents that towns and cities have created are adopted by reference, so that at least they're considered in any other planning that might take place. So in Chestertown's case, we've got the Waterfront Committee report that was done in 1995, the Town of Chestertown's Historic District Design Guidelines, which were written in 2002, revised in 2012. We've got the Chestertown Greenbelt and Comprehensive Plan, which Eastern Shore Land Conservancy worked with the town. That plan was already adopted by reference to the comprehensive plan. And then the 2014 Chestertown Public Arts Master Plan. All of them planning documents, all of them important pieces of Chestertown's future. Again, none of them in and of themselves prescriptive as far as what the town should do in any one area, but they're simply taking off points for future development. So, if you have any questions,
So, have there been any major development highlights since the last comprehensive plan was written, other than parks? So, are we talking about, new resident buildings or neighborhoods or commercial buildings? Anything in the past since the last comprehensive plan?
Yeah, we've got Coventry 2, the traffic circle, the parks that I mentioned, Bailey Park, Remembrance Park, Village of Chestertown, we've got Russ Richardson's development. Twilly Lane was under consideration, and I'm not sure where that is.
And Chestertown Landing has been...
Chestertown Landing has been built out.
I can't tell you I read this whole thing, but I did read those parts that I think are important, which was the executive summary and the land use. I think the land use is probably the most important part, especially involving the council itself, and I really couldn't find much fault in it. As far as the rest of the Bob Sipes and the water thing, I don't think he's going to lead astray. I'm sure he had some input into what you're doing. This is my 8th year on the council, and the Planning Commission has just did a bang-up job, and I certainly, they're much more expertise than I am as far as whether the buildings are done correctly or they fit into the landscape or whatever it may be. And as long as they're in effect and they keep doing what we see and hear, I have no problem with this comprehensive plan as it's written and submitted. I would like to tell you I read the whole thing, but I didn't. But I did read those parts that I thought was most important to the council and to the people of Chestertown. And if we don't put our trust in the Planning Commission, then why do we have the Planning Commission? So that's my statement as far as the comprehensive plan goes.
I have a little bit more at stake in my ward, because I have the college and I have the businesses. You sent out an email that there were corrections, but you didn't say what the corrections were. You said you sent out a corrected...
I left out a sentence. I left out a sentence in one paragraph, and then there were a couple of past tenses that were corrected. So if you want a list of those, I can give it to you, but I can almost point them out to you.
I thought maybe you would, have a list with this, of what was corrected. It's 130 pages, so.
Yeah, it was literally one sentence that the college had in their list of revisions had included in their recommendations. So without it, the paragraph didn't make sense. But that was the major revision. But yes, I should have.
And when we had the meeting on September 17th, were those who spoke on the 17th given an opportunity
Absolutely.
to get a copy of this?
No, because the public meeting, when the public meeting was held, the testimony that was received was taken by the Planning Commission, and then subsequent to the 2-month extension being requested by Washington College, all of that testimony was then considered in the Planning Commission's meeting. The public meeting is only for receiving the testimony. The subsequent Planning Commission meeting is where that testimony and those contributions were considered and then acted upon or rejected, depending on where the Planning Commission felt it had a place or was appropriate for the document. But no, the Planning Commission's job is not to...
Am I the only person who didn't read it all the way through?
Send the new version out to each person that gave testimony and see whether that meets their...
When I was on the Planning Commission.
You have read it all the way through?
I see people in the audience who are...
Yeah.
Do they have a chance to say anything?
Well, that's what the public hearing was.
I know.
What are you and the Planning Commission most excited about in this document, in the newly updated comprehensive plan?
number one, that it's done, because it's been over 2 years. Chris, I don't know if you remember when you were
Oh, yeah.
chair of the planning commission, how long ago was that? Was it 2012?
That I joined or that we started this
You
process?
started?
At least 2012.
Before that.
Well, and I just think it's a much clearer, much more concise document. When you really got into the weeds of the existing document, it was a very good document and very good as far as planning and insights into Chestertown and future development. But I think we really, with Chris as the chair of the planning commission, went through it word for word.
Yeah.
And over the course of months, and 2 years really, went through every single word and decided whether that should be in there or not. And then in many cases where new activity had to be reflected in the document, we put that in.
It's a much easier read. I mean, I read the previous plan, pretty much in its entirety, before joining the council. It was a hard slog. I've already have read this whole thing, assuming that we're gonna set a date tonight for when we're going to vote on it. Right, we have 60 days, you said, to approve it.
We have 60 days to vote.
I personally, I would like to finish it.
Yeah.
I only got it on Thursday.
Just a quick comment. It looks like all of these maps have been, not necessarily just updated, but they're much higher quality than the previous.
I was going to say, one thing, if nothing else, it's more colorful than it ever was before.
It's very readable.
There, yeah.
You get back 20 years and you'll find it's just all text. And, but there's visual help here. And the maps are clear. And like he says, they're based by the parcel. So that when the zoning comes along, it's a lot easier to decide what they were trying to say before. And that's kind of segues into this thing about when we have to change the map, it's because something didn't translate from what the planning commission said to a specific parcel. And that happens occasionally. But it'll happen less now.
Well, I know there are people in the audience that would love to comment. Let's nip this in the bud. What I'd like to ask you is if you could comment on two things, and then we can open up the floor to comment. So can you summarize the requests made by the college, how we honored some and maybe didn't honor others? And then can you also address the Washington Avenue residents that I know had some suggestions that they wanted to see implemented? And then we can open up.
I'll start with the Washington Avenue residents.
Okay.
The Washington Avenue Neighborhood Association came to the planning commission, and I think, I assume they also.
And the council.
With a series of concerns regarding a lot of it being student housing, but also a lot of concerns about Washington Avenue and the traffic, the extent of traffic, the speed of traffic, pedestrian safety, and other concerns that we've acted on as the town by getting in touch with SHA, with two different departments within SHA, to look at street design and sidewalks and pedestrian crossings as ways to help slow down traffic and increase pedestrian safety. And actually that relates back to Washington College as well, because with the Board of Education building being demolished and work starting on that next academic building, there are going to be more students crossing Washington Avenue, so we need to be concerned about their safety as well. So comments were received at the public meeting from the neighborhood association. And there was a desire to have some text put into the comprehensive plan regarding their desire to, for instance, make that two-block area of Washington Avenue a gateway, and other concerns that, frankly, after talking about it with the Planning Commission, it didn't seem like the comprehensive plan was really the place to put that kind of information. The comprehensive plan is really about larger, sort of town-wide issues, whether it's recreation or transportation or police or fire and so forth. Certainly, we are concerned with sidewalks, and we are concerned with pedestrian safety, but we're going to get into it on a block-by-block basis. So we felt like the testimony that was received, valuable as it was better off being acted upon at the mayor and council level and at my level as the zoning administrator to request from SHA that they do some studying and then come forward with some recommendations. They pointed out themselves, for instance, that the curbing and guttering on Washington Avenue, because the road has been repaved so often, there's only about 2 to 3 inches of curb left, so that's bad from a stormwater perspective, it's bad from a traffic perspective. And so there are things like street trees and other things that can be done there to help mitigate some of those traffic and pedestrian concerns. From Washington College, there were essentially two primary concerns. One was that for Stepney and the waterfront parcels where at some point in the future some new academic facilities will be located, that they're pulling back and they're going to do their own master planning process to look at that entire area in context and really look at it comprehensively, and that is, I think, an excellent idea. The Planning Commission thought so. Their point being, for instance, that with the boathouse, that if a new boathouse is constructed and plans move forward with that, but then that maybe impacts negatively the viewscape from Stepney or the views of the Chester River, then maybe they've shot themselves in the foot. So maybe it's a good idea to pull back and really look at the entire area. And that includes, locating buildings, streets, perhaps sidewalks, pedestrianism, pathways, and all sorts of issues. So we had in the future land use map identified some ideas for that property. That map has not changed because, frankly, we have many sort of competing plans. The Public Arts Master Plan would be one of them for what could happen in that area. But as I said, that is not a prescriptive of what should happen there, and neither is what's in the comprehensive plan necessarily definitive or prescriptive of what exactly should happen at that waterfront. But we did, in the Planning Commission, approve their or accept their recommendation that they initiate a master planning process for that area. We're supportive of it, and they're moving forward with that. So we made some textual changes as well to reflect.
In other words, we gave them what's called a sub-area plan, which allows them some more flexibility than the zoning, which is a little more rigid, would normally allow, because we want them to plan it comprehensively.
That's right.
And give them the latitude that they asked for.
We have made we have created zoning boundaries that were really sort of, finger in the wind for what might happen there, but there are a lot of ideas that are out there about what could happen.
Could you
did the master planning for that?
So can you address the Planning Commission's take on the other request at Morgneck and 213.
For the other concern, for the Lamont property, I think the bottom line there was that they had requested a sub-area plan process for that as well, with a provision for the possibility of commercial zoning on that property. And there's a long history associated with this parcel. And going back to the 1980s, we looked at that history and decided that the zoning that's there, which is RB professional office, was appropriate for that parcel. That's a zoning that was approved by the mayor and council. It had been zoned initially institutional by the planning commission, and then President Mitchell Reese came to the mayor and council to request that the rezone commercial, and they met halfway by zoning it professional office, which doesn't quite give them commercial uses, but it certainly opens it up to a lot more mixed-use opportunities than what either commercial or resident or institutional would have provided. So that's where that was at.
Okay, are there comments maybe from the college or Barbara? I know you had said you might want to comment.
I would like to comment.
Okay.
I was one of the people who are part of the Washington Avenue Neighborhood Association, who was both before this council and also before the Planning Commission. And I would like to say that everybody in the Washington Avenue corridor appreciates the time that both the Planning Commission and this group gave us. However, I think there's been a misrepresentation tonight about what we asked for. And I want to clarify that, and I want to clarify why we want something in the master plan, comprehensive plan. At the initiation of the Washington Avenue Neighborhood Association, not the town, that group met with the State Highway Administration. State Highway Administration has its own axe to grind, but nevertheless, the two officials we met with were really quite helpful. And we talked about some of the things that Case just mentioned. We talked about traffic. We talked about speed. We talked about pedestrian safety. We talked about sidewalks. We talked about planting trees. We talked about all these ways that you can slow down the traffic and improve that section. And a key to that is getting on something called the Streetscape program, which is a state program. And we were told very directly that the State Highway Administration looks very, very carefully at the comprehensive plans of the town. And all you need is a paragraph in there that recognizes that this neighborhood is important, and you have a leg up in getting this funding from the state. That's what we want. We want the recognition that this part of Washington Avenue is unique. And it's unique because it is the bridge between the two major gateways into this town. You come into either of the two major gateways, you pass in front of those houses on Washington Avenue. All we want is a recognition that exists, and that the town does recognize that it's an important, albeit small neighborhood, just as other small neighborhoods are also recognized in the comprehensive plan. In fact, I brought some language that I would like to suggest tonight. Pass that out to each of you.
Jeff, don't we have some language in there about?
I thought I read something, there's something in there about
There's
measures.
not in the last version that I saw.
Well, the one-
I saw the last comprehensive plan only because my husband is on the planning commission. And so I,
Got an inside
plan,
connection.
Did everybody get one? Sorry, Sam, here you go. Did you get one?
No.
Sorry.
I think I did read something in there about the
You
traffic.
didn't even read the parts that this was in.
How do you know what?
Well, let's say the part I read something in there that talked about your...
What we want is some recognition by the town that this
Understood.
is important, and then we can get the state to help us.
Got you.
That's what we need. We're
Okay.
not asking you to appropriate money. We're not asking for to be deemed a gateway, which is a term of art in the plan, and was probably inartfully used in the discussions that we had before this group and before the planning commission initially. We're just a block that is the bridge between the two gateways, and we just want that recognition.
Okay.
Thank you.
I read it in here, I knew
How
it.
about you guys? Joe?
Washington College appreciated the extension we were granted by the Planning Commission and the opportunity to be heard. We were happy with part of the outcome and disappointed by another part of the outcome. And I'm not here tonight to try and relitigate that. What I am here to talk about is something that we included in our proposal to the Planning Commission, from which the college really wouldn't benefit, but could be a great benefit to Chestertown. And that was the inclusion of the Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone as a priority action item, along with the Arts District designation. The only way a municipality or county can access this is through work association with an institution like higher education, institution like college. The property tax, income tax incentives, in the absence of an economic development director for Chestertown, the access to the concierge service at DBED for current and prospective employers in Chestertown that want to come in and invest in our community. I think we're missing a great opportunity if we don't embrace this opportunity to get designation early on through the state. I think it would be a competitive advantage for Chestertown. Again, these benefits won't accrue to the college, but one of your goals this year is to work in closer partnership with the college, take advantage of our unique attributes to advance the community. One of these is to have the college be the conduit through which this RISE zone designation can be awarded to Chestertown. It is I don't know if the entire town is a priority funding area for the state of Maryland. I think it would be an ideal candidate for this designation. It extends TIP financing beyond the normal scope for additional opportunities for stormwater and other investments in the community. Thinking of the development of Stephanie and some costs that the municipality and others might concur. I just think, I didn't really get a great answer in terms of an evaluation of this and why it wasn't embraced by the Planning Commission as much as the Arts District was. I think it has a greater potential perhaps for a larger segment of our business community to try and find themselves in this in ways that could help them leverage current investments and expand employment for disadvantaged parts of our community. So I brought copies. I hope maybe perhaps the mayor and council might consider this as an amendment.
Okay.
And I'll share them with you. And again, the college really will not accrue any benefit from this. I don't think most of these advantages, property tax advantages, we're not going to be able to receive a credit for, but I think the town is missing an opportunity by not leveraging the college's standing to apply for this designation.
Are there any other comments? So Case, if we wanted to consider these two suggestions, what would the process be?
Well,
Should we send you guys back to the drawing board, pretty much? To start from scratch? Did I just put you on the spot?
well,
I think we should consider these things first, and then decide whether we need to send it back or not.
well, just,
Before we get into that too deeply, Joe, is there some requirement in here that has to be in your comp plan? I mean, other zones we've applied for without having,
I think when you're looking at it, I think feedback knowledge, I don't think it's a requirement.
Yeah.
But I think it rises a level of importance and strategic value to Chestertown as the Arts District does. Having one in and the other out, I think they both should be.
well, the
I don't
arts and
think it's a-
entertainment, is that newly in case?
Yes.
That was added when? The arts and, the idea of an arts and entertainment district.
oh, I'm sorry, no, the Arts and Entertainment District is not in, because we haven't applied for it yet.
It says,
It's listed in
But
the
you're
comp
talking
plan
about the
as a
monster,
priority
the
action item
public-
for the town planning
To
commission.
get
just-
an Arts and Entertainment
Right,
District.
and all I'm asking is that equal standing be granted to the RISE enterprise zone, which would have a much broader appeal to a larger segment of Chestertown than the Arts District.
But I'm not sure that either one of them has to be in the comp plan for us to participate, like the tax incentive zones, the target zones that we're in now. they didn't require that. It required us to pass it by resolution or ordinance and say, this is the area that we want to use.
I'm not disputing that, Bill. I just think it's symbolic if you have one end.
And the second question I was asking was, do we have that? I wasn't sure that we had the arts and entertainment in the comp plan. We just have been talking about doing it.
It's listed in the comp plan as a priority action item.
Okay.
To secure that designation.
And it is because there's been a lot of public comment about getting arts and entertainment district designation. I'll be honest, when I saw your, this RISE designation, I have no idea where it originates, and I've never heard of it. We worked pretty closely.
Passed by the legislature, signed by the governor last June.
Okay.
And applications are being accepted now. And I just think it's a huge competitive advantage for Chestertown to get this designation. You have to get it through an organization like Caroline County, for instance, wouldn't be able to apply for this because they don't have the nexus to get the zone established. Whereas this is something the college can do for Chestertown. And I think it provides great advantage for both the municipality and local businesses.
Well, what's the downside?
There's no downside.
No downside. My question was strictly as to whether we need to do this with either. Obviously, if there's a deadline looming and there's no downside, we would want to do it, whether it was in our comp plan or not.
Yeah, my point would simply be, just as we're working on the arts and entertainment district right now, there are going to be other things that come up, developments that come up that are not in the comprehensive plan right now, and if they rise to the level of needing inclusion, of course, we're going to include them in a subsequent version. But I would, and I would say the same thing to Barbara here. I got no indication whatsoever from the state that anything had to be in the comprehensive plan as far as their streetscape program. It simply is not. It is not necessary. All that the town has to do is request that they look at they've already stated that they were very interested in doing something in that two-block area. But we may want to extend that.
There is some verbiage on page 39, 200 block of Washington Avenue Board of Education. It goes into that, it's talking about safe egress and pedestrians and vehicles. That's what I read. You live on the 200 block, right?
Yes, I do.
That's what they're talking about here.
But I will also
Now, I
tell
don't
you-
see any reason why some of this little verbiage could be added in there, but it's just enhancing what's already there. So it's not like they didn't consider it.
Again, let me repeat. The State Highway Administration officials stood on my front porch and told us that they looked at the language of the comprehensive plan. They also told us to go to the town and get a letter, which we did, which Bill and Case were and you, Mayor, were very kind in getting that done within the past month or so. But we need, it's just a paragraph that may in fact get the town something that will enhance the
Let
town.
me tell you about State Highway. They told me that we would never get a roundabout. Never get a roundabout at 20 and 213. Drive down there and see now, you got a roundabout. So, I don't doubt the gentleman that said to you, but you can't hold them to what they say.
I didn't get to be 65 years old believing everything.
Oh my gosh, are you 65?
But I will tell you that I believe that they gave us a couple strong indications of what they thought we should do. And these are small things.
I'm still waiting for that study for why they hit the button on the wrong side of the street.
This paragraph is about the build,
I know it. I know. I read it. I've read it
Not
twice.
exactly what they need.
I don't have any problem with their verbiage.
Case, what would be the suggestion to move this forward? I think we've heard from everybody.
Where I'm stumped a little bit is, we've had our public meeting, and we closed the public comment period when those comments were received. At that, and the planning commission has met subsequent to that, considered all the comments, they've acted, they've moved to bring the comprehensive plan to the mayor and council for adoption. You can vote as a body to have it kicked back to the planning commission and to maybe we would have to, I think, reopen the public comment period and get new input.
Can't we just make
Can't
a
we
couple
ju-
text amendments and send it back?
Aren't we the final word? We're the final word. So if we decide the final word is that some of this verbiage that the lady would like on Washington Avenue, we think is a good idea to be in here, why couldn't we put that in there and then vote on that? If you send it
I
back,
believe that it would have to go, in other words, you have three possible actions. You can adopt it as it is. You can adopt it in part, or you can put it back to the planning commission. I'm not sure that the mayor and council can change the text of the comprehensive plan. That's all I'm saying.
You just said.
No, they can change the zoning ordinance, but the planning commission has to agree to these minor changes, so I would say you just go back and say, here's the paragraph from WANA, and here's the RISE thing from the college, and say, do you mind putting this and where do you want to put it, so that it can get funded, so that the WANA can get, the programs from SHA, and so the planning commission considers a minor amendment to something that's already been, and sends it back to us next month.
I don't think they're asking for anything that's going to be
If that's all we're down to,
advantage to
that's not
anybody.
bad.
So, I mean,
I don't see these as like real huge, monumental shifts in anything. They're just small additions. So I think that would be my suggestion, would be to, I don't know if we need a motion to that we send it back with these two text additions.
Do we make a motion?
I don't know.
And then what if the next time we have it in front of us for approval, two more people stand
Yeah.
up with things they want added?
Say we're closing the door.
I haven't read this text. I did read yours, and I have no problem with it, but this one's going to take a little more time.
I think these are reasonable, but they're both very similar. They're both things where you think they have to be in a comprehensive plan. I don't think, but it builds a better case. Sometimes we would adopt them by reference in the past, or put them in the executive summary or whatever, They're either economic development or they're neighborhood improvement type things, and it's a sentence or a paragraph. It's no big deal. If the planning commission says, no, it's perfect, then come back here and deal with it.
Well, I think, certainly for the RISE zone, I think we all need to read that as well and decide, because
it does.
I just came from, I was at a Arts and Entertainment District meeting earlier, and, we've got Main Street, we're a sustainable community, Sustainable Maryland certified, we're a target investment zone. We have a lot of different designations, and, I think as a mayor and council, you need to decide, where's the threshold of.
This says that the institutions apply, so in this case, the RISE. Yeah. So we have the opportunity to say, what happens is that it abates local income taxes and stuff. So you just want to look at that. That doesn't affect you as directly as your real estate taxes. But I think it's another tool that we should put in our tool chest. It can't hurt.
All right, so what are we going to do?
You could make a motion that this program be incorporated and that paragraph be incorporated, or recommend it, and send it back.
Okay. Is there a motion to that effect?
That's what I think. We send it back to look at these two parts, not the whole doggone thing again.
Okay.
Just those two
Are you going to make a motion, Linda?
It's my
We're on the verge of a motion. Something's about to happen.
I make a motion that Planning Commission insert the Washington Avenue neighborhood paragraph into the comprehensive plan, and I make a motion that the regional institution strategic enterprise zones
Be added to
presented
the
by
priority
Washington
list.
College.
Priority action item. Be added as a priority action item.
Yeah, both be added as a priority action to the comprehensive plan.
All right. Is there a second?
Well, I second both of those motions, since you made two.
Okay.
For technicality's sake. One was one, so I second that.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, I want to thank Case and Jeff and all the planning commission members for, this is a huge job. I don't think people realize how huge it really is. Big. And thank you guys for coming. Jay?
Could I make one comment?
Sure.
Because I'm the new boy on the block, but I can tell you, Joe Holt is an equal to H. Seymour at Washington College. This guy, I used to know before he had any gray hair at all. I'm surprised he doesn't look gray. He really puts the time in Washington College.
Yeah.
Big time.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to your
Okay.
next item.
Okay, two other things. One is, we got a call or an email today from People's Bank. They would like to consider that 3-night summer series they had, concerts in the Fountain Park. They had them in July last year. I think they were Wednesday or Thursday nights. This is conceptual. They don't have the bands yet, and they don't have the exact dates, but we want to encourage them if we can. So, council, how do you feel about that?
Thumbs up. Can we make a motion to support it conceptually?
I don't know what,
Morally.
Okay?
yeah, I don't think
Do
I'd
we
fill
need to
out
make
a
a motion,
permit
or
like
can we just
everybody
say we
else, but I
support
think
it?
it'll be fine.
I think, no, just the idea that you like the idea. is
Yeah, I
fine.
think we like the idea.
And the last thing I have is a letter of support that we received from Drew McMullen. Is he here?
He was going to come, but his wife is very sick.
Okay.
He can't make it.
And this is a letter from the town signed by all of you guys saying, "We are writing to express our support for Sultana Education Foundation's 2015 capital grant application to the Stories of the Chesapeake Heritage Area and Maryland Heritage Areas Authority to support the construction and renovation of their new education center at 200-204 South Cross Street in Chestertown. We are very pleased that MHAA saw fit to provide $92,000 in funding for this project in 2014 and urge you to look favorably on Sultana's current request, which will play a significant part in fulfilling their outstanding funding needs for this project." There's more, but that's all you need to know. You're supporting a grant application, and you should do it because you can.
Oh, yeah, no, well,
So there's a letter here that, and I think a motion would be in order and just to sign this letter.
I would move that we adopt that letter and mail it in support of the foundation.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that letter's going around for signatures.
And that completes my report.
Okay, that brings me to my report. I'm going to start with item B, because I think it'll be the briefer of the two. SHA letter regarding community safety and enhancement program. This kind of ties into what Barbara Jorgensen was talking about. We did send, as a town, a letter to the State Highway Administration in regards to wanting them to closely examine basically Washington Avenue, that section there, for traffic calming and landscaping elements. And so we did receive a letter of reply from Melinda Peters, an administrator at the SHA. I'll just read parts of it for you. It says, "Dear Mayor Serino, thank you for your letter regarding consideration of a community safety and enhancement program project along Maryland 213 from Water Street to Campus Avenue in the town of Chestertown. The CSEP intends to address safety and system preservation needs on state highways that pass through the center of municipalities and other communities. Because these communities are often among the oldest sections of the SHA system, significant safety, pavement, and drainage problems may exist and need to be addressed. As I'm sure you can appreciate, the CSEP is an extremely popular program. There's a long list of projects which are being considered with a finite amount of funding. It is unrealistic to consider that SHA would be able to advance them all. The SHA is currently evaluating similar roadways statewide to prioritize safety and infrastructure concerns and identify future project candidates. We anticipate completing this evaluation by early summer 2015. This information will then be shared with our district engineer, Greg Holsey, when it's completed. Thank you again for your letter. If you have any additional comments or questions, please do not hesitate to contact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, in other words, they got our letter, they have a ton of requests and not a lot of money, but they're looking into it and they hope to complete their evaluation by early summer of 2015. And then they'll get with, did you meet with Greg Holsey when you guys?
Absolutely, yes.
So he should be hearing from them hopefully by early this summer, and hopefully that will include our information.
My husband, David Bowering, has already had several very interesting conversations with Holsey. They've been
Yeah.
here talking statistic things because they've already looked at the some of the preliminary data from the traffic studies that have been done. So that's all in progress.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Can I
Okay.
have a copy of that letter?
I think you can. I don't see why
May
not.
I?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. The second item on my report is the parking meter discussion. When we initially agreed to bag the parking meters, theoretically, it was a 6-month trial run, at which point we said we would reevaluate. I don't know, Linda, if you've been doing your usual
Yes,
surveying
I
of
did.
business owners, so why don't you start the dialogue?
Well, the consensus is everybody wants free parking. I even did a man on the street and asked people on the street, do you want the meters to come back? And they said no. Okay. And I'm glad you stayed here, Bob, because I wanted to ask you if you would say what you were thinking about taking to the DCA for your...
Right, and I've talked to one of the executives, well, the president, I guess we talked about it briefly. What we would like to do is, and we should have done this honestly, or I thought about it and haven't done it as yet, but we're all in front of our businesses, we all know who parks and abuses the parking space.
Right.
And what we wanted to do is create, or what I want to do is create a little flyer, if you will, that we put on the car, something that essentially states, the parking meters are been bagged as an experiment. We don't feel we need them downtown. We want it to be a friendly shopping area. The reason they're bagged is the reason there are meters is to turn over parking spaces. If we don't need to turn them over, then you have free parking. But if you're working downtown, living downtown, we'll point them to the right. There's plenty of parking spaces nearby within a short.
Send them to the new lot on Cannon. I mean, seriously.
And talk to the employers themselves,
Right.
all business owners. You're going to have some people that are going to abuse it regardless.
Yeah.
Even if you have parking meters, they're going to just feed them. So there's going to be some of that, but generally, I would like to see the meters not put back.
Not returned, okay.
I don't think Town really has a parking problem. I mean, if you go to a mall, you have to walk a mile just to get to the mall, and a mile in the mall. So if you have to walk half a block,
I think you're going to have to hand them that piece of paper, unless we change our ordinance. We have an ordinance against putting things on cars' windows. There is an ordinance for that.
It's
yeah.
a cycle.
Big government, Linda. I hate it.
Never get
The problem is, people go up to the shopping center and put all those little flyers on them, and a wind comes along, and then they blow all over the place. So there is an ordinance, and it's been passed years ago. I don't know how many years ago. It was there when I was chief of police, which was 25 years
How about a
ago.
sticker?
A sticker.
Okay, Linda, do you have any more comments on your
Actually,
diligent research here?
yes, I was surprised and I asked the question too, do you use the town lot? Most of the people on High Street between Mill and Cross park behind their businesses. Every business, had a parking place or they did use the town lot. And the reason why I was asking that too was because I had asked if we could have that town lot during the Tea Party for, our artisans parking. So I wanted to know whether we would be inconveniencing the businesses or not. I did run into comments of people not picking up after their dogs down in the block on High between Cross and Queen. So we might want to look into that. And let's see, what else?
Is that related to the parking?
The dogs are parking.
No, but that's what, I ran into.
all in favor
The
of
com-
having
the-
to feed the meter for the dog.
The complaints on Cross Street were that the people in the real estate office park on the street. And I had that from several businesses on Cross. And let's see. So I didn't go into the real estate office because it was closed, but, so I don't know whether those people use the town.
They do.
I saw you
Everybody
there.
parks in front of the office.
Hmm?
Yeah, I walk or I'll park behind the old PNC bank. I leave the spaces open for the customers.
I don't think we should make any permanent decision tonight because we've never done this during the summertime. I can just see if we get all these tourists that Bernadette would love to have come to town, and so would I, and they come in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to park down there and walk down to our beautiful waterfront and take the packet out for 3 or 4 hours, and we're going to have some limited parking. So whatever we consider, I bag them for another 6 or 8 months, but let's get through the summer before we decide what we're going to do about it, because there could be
This
some
is
problems.
just gonna keep on going.
Of course it
and
is.
going.
It's fine.
So-
Those are the kind of customers, those are the kind of people you want.
Right.
Let them
Nancy?
have those spots, let them have the spots.
Several months ago, when I made a presentation, a long presentation that was in writing to the town council as about a parking plan, it was encouraging and asking that we have that new parking area developed, which Bill's done a beautiful job on. But I kept saying that it's a comprehensive plan, and I had to have all the pieces in there, so that down the line, which is what we're doing now, discussing whether it worked or not, we would have some way to judge whether it worked, and not just comment in the street. The other part of it was to let the merchants know that there was a merchant parking, that the parking lot that was being created would be have a sign on it that says for merchants, and that the other parking lot, which is across the street from that, would be designated as welcome visitors, and that each business either had to have a sticker for their car or had to be told that they directly told that there was a parking place for them on Cross Street. That part of it was never done. So I don't even know why we're having the discussion, because we don't know what really happened. And the people at Caldwell Banker who park there probably don't even know that there's a parking garage or a parking lot over there on County Street. So until we look at it entirely, I agree with Marty. We don't really know whether we have, whether this has worked or not. And I agree with you, summer's coming on, it's an entirely different story when summer's here. There are very few cars parked in that new parking lot. And I think it's because people just don't know about it.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I also think there's just some people that are just not going to go there because it's inconvenient.
It's their right to park in front of their house.
That's the minority, I think, if they know about it.
They're the same people who ride around Ken Plaza 4 times to keep from walking up 50 yards.
Yeah.
Well, the last time I did this survey was in the summer,
Right.
because Sydney retired at the end of what, August?
But yeah, August is okay. I think our prime, like May is a big, May, June, like, that would be interesting to see how May and June go.
It'll be warmer. Oh.
Yeah.
May? Well,
Liz?
that's only 2 months.
Well, I think we should maybe, well, let's get through the comments and then we'll decide a course of action.
I'm wondering whether we need an ordinance such as Easton and other towns have, which limit parking. And if we were to do it, I would suggest something like 3 hours. In other words, you could come into town, you could have a nice leisurely lunch, and you would still have time to do some shopping, or window shopping, look around. There would need to be some enforcement, but someone who is really annoyed with an owner of a business who's parking their car on the street all day could simply call it in.
That's a feud.
Yeah.
You call that a feud.
No, had it done to me.
That's on Cross Street.
Yep, there's a one there. So I don't think it's a case where we would have to necessarily have a parking enforcer again.
But if you have 3-hour parking, you gotta have an employee
Right,
that you're
you have to have
paying
somebody
to
to
go
mark them.
mark the tires and and time it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, I don't know. How about Sam, do you have a comment?
No, I mean, if you're gonna go down that method, you might as well just bring the meters back. So, I personally don't think there is a parking problem every time I've gone down there during lunchtime, during the evening hours. I always find a parking spot, even if I have to walk a block, and it's never been a problem. I agree with Marty, let's see how the summer goes, and then afterward, I think we can lock something in a little bit longer term rather than just a 6-month trial period.
One of the bags on High Street, on the other side of High Street, is badly lit and hanging there, and it looks awful. If we have any extras.
But I mean, either way you look at it, this is a conversation of nickels and dimes. In all honesty, I mean, it even with the bags not being there, it cost a nickel or a dime to park. So I don't know. It's a discussion that seems to just keep on happening. But I mean, we have to really ask ourselves: is there really a problem? And a lot of people say no, there isn't a problem. So if everybody is saying there isn't a problem, right?
I think what I'm hearing is most of the business owners, if not all, were saying, let's keep it as it is. And so what I would suggest tonight, I do think Marty has a good point. It'll be interesting to see what happens in April, May, and June, when I think people really start coming back out of their, huts. And so I would suggest tonight that we decide to extend it for another 6 months and evaluate it again. And Liz, you can make sure it's on that 6 months we have this, and then we can come with a.
Well, we only did it for, 60 days or something? It started in December.
6 months? No.
No, it was August.
In August?
Sydney retired,
Okay, so we're gonna go through for one full.
I walk
calendar
or ride my bike downtown, so I don't.
Liz has another.
Just while we're on parking, it's not exactly related to the meters, but Bill, as someone who drives a handicapped person into town a lot, my spouse, could we re-examine the location of the handicapped parking spots, particularly the ones in front of stands, are completely inappropriate. If you have a handicapped person in the passenger seat of your car, you cannot get them out of the car because one of the handicapped spots is in front of a tree planter. You can't.
Well, I think we rushed that one in right after you became mayor. And yes, we can move them.
I mean, it could move back one.
We can put it wherever actually the way the law reads is that the mayor designates a handicapped parking space, and sometimes people with needs move.
Well, you need more room. You notice when you have not parallel parking, diagonal parking, for handicapped people, it's always wider because they have to open their doors completely up, and
Well, if they have
some
a
of them have to
chair,
get
it's not the
wheelchairs
only
in
kind
and
of
out.
handicap. There is.
Right.
There's visual handicaps as well, and
We have several to move.
had a great-
We have several handicap spaces to move, so I would appreciate your input on it.
I will go around and look at
You're
them all.
supposed to have a painted mark and a sign, so that if it snows, there's still, you still know it's a handicap.
All right, so Liz, you're gonna follow up on that?
I will.
The handicap issue?
I'm
But
gonna look at them all.
Are we in agreement that we can extend the bagged parking meters
Yes.
for another 6 months and then just call it a year and reanalyze one more time? Okay. Ward reports, item 6. Why don't we start with Mr. Stetson?
Oh, wow. Well, I think with the weather we've had, I want to compliment the town again on cleaning our streets and get them so you can work in. I look for you in the truck, Sam. I didn't see. I look for you. They go by and I keep waving. There's Sam, but it's not in here.
Set that up so it's automatic. Sure.
And I just want to give a plug to the Washington College kids who come here, the entrepreneurs who making soap and selling it. Usually when you buy a cake of soap like that, you figure it's a donation and it probably doesn't work. I've used their soap and it really does work. So if you get a chance to buy it, buy it.
We're selling it at the Worley History Center.
Oh, cool.
Did you try the beer one, Mark?
Yeah.
I went through a whole
It
bar
didn't
of beer.
smell like beer though. But it was a
Thumbs up on the beer.
It's a
soap.
nice cake of soap. You can hold it in your hand very nicely, and it's.
So is
those
that,
kids
is
doing
that
a
what's
good
going
job.
on in your ward? A lot of good soap?
Marty's clean.
Soap and streets. It's both S&S going my ward down.
All right. Why don't we go to Linda, and we'll come back to Sam.
Okay, well, most of my week was taken up with parking meter survey, but I just want to remind people too that the farmer's market goes on all year long. They're out there in the freezing cold, and please support our farmer's market.
Liz?
I don't have too much to report. A suggestion to throw out that was sent to me by one of the residents of the First Ward, modeled, it relates to the weather we've been having, modeled after the town of Plymouth in Connecticut that has an Adopt a Hydrant program in which residents are asked if they have a fire hydrant on their property to take the time to clear the snow away from it as a goodwill gesture for the town, and obviously a big safety feature that makes it easier in the terrible case there should be a fire and firemen need access to the hydrant. So, I mean, it's a bit late for this season, but maybe something that we could talk about
I don't think,
implementing next year.
you're not talking about, why would you need an ordinance to do that?
Yeah.
I didn't say we should have an ordinance, I just adopt a hydrant.
I'll put it on
program.
Facebook and on our website
We
as
haven't
a
had
suggestion.
snow all that terribly deep this year, but we have in the past. Yeah, the dogs.
I can't even get my dogs to go outside.
Anything else?
I don't. Oh, well, Marty didn't mention, we got the notification that the Acme grand reopening
Oh, right.
ceremony is Friday the 13th. I don't know if that's an auspicious day, at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you got my email.
I did get your email, and I'll be happy to do that. I'm not going to sing a song like our mayor might sing. but-
I'm sure you'll do just fine. So it looks like we lost Sam. Why don't we move to our next item, and if he has...
Here he is.
Oh, wait, there he is. Sorry.
So,
Ward 3.
yes, ward report. So I was just speaking with Bernadette. This is in reference to the marketing committee. So I've got the input from Mike O'Connor from the College Relations and Marketing Office, and of course Bernadette, Francois as well, our web developer. So all of these bodies have agreed to sit on the committee once we get it, of course, voted on. So I'm just passing the draft around, circulating it to all the individuals. Having the A&E district person when we hire them will be a definite person to kind of be on the on that committee there. So once I get the recommendations from Bernadette in terms of some of the comments that she has, I'll just kind of finalize everything, bring it to you all to put to a vote. It's probably something that we can do. The timing, I have some questions about in terms of, do we implement it now and get started, or do we wait until the summertime when the A&E district person comes on board? Because that's the time that we plan on hiring that person, correct?
Correct.
I think. And then, of course, doing it around our budget season so we can actually make an allocation for the committee. There will be some financing that we will need to request from the town. So in terms of doing it now, getting it started just because there's a lot of work to do, or just waiting for the most applicable time, which would be the summertime. So getting
You should get it started.
Get it started?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually going to have a sit down with Bernadette very soon, and then I can bring that draft back for a vote within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, anything else?
I forgot one thing.
Okay.
Chester River Wine and Cheese opens this week.
Yeah,
and they're
very
open
exciting.
First Friday.
Oh, great.
So please go
That's
down and
fantastic.
see them Friday night.
Perfect.
All right. Our last item, request from the public to be on the agenda, Mary Hanley from the Delmarva Community Transit.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for your
Great to be
patience.
Last, hopefully not least, yes. It's great to be here. I am Mary Hanley with Delmarva Community Transit, and I am a mobility manager. A lot of people are not familiar with what a mobility manager does, but we represent the person-centered side of transportation. So we advocate for riders, we try to solve their transit problems, we try to promote using public transit, and we work with communities and counties and cities to identify transit needs and trends, and help any way that we can. So we have an office in the Alexander Building on the second floor, and we've actually been working in Chestertown for almost 2 years now. I have a staff of 4 people, and we communicate a lot with the county and haven't had a chance to meet all of you.
Great.
2 of the things that we do that are interesting, we do travel training. So people who are not familiar with riding the bus, don't have a clue how to do it, we can provide that service to qualifying individuals at no cost to those riders, so they can learn how to use the bus system. We meet them, what are their interests, where they want to go. We ride with them every step of the way to the doctor's appointment or to shopping and back until they're comfortable doing it themselves. And the other service we provide, we have small vehicles. We have vans and cars for people who are frail, cannot ride bus, or perhaps the schedule doesn't work what they need, and we can pick those people up on a limited basis. So we've been doing that in Chestertown here on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 1 in the afternoon to 4. But then my purpose tonight, when I first started working here, I realized that we had established bus stops at the 2 extremes of the town. We have one in the Roses Shopping Center, and we have one at the Dollar General store. And I'm thinking, here's this beautiful downtown with stores and the post office, the court building, social services. And if people are coming from outlying areas and using public transit, that means they have to walk. They have to walk from Roses to downtown or Dollar General, or if they're downtown and need to go out, they have to walk, and they're transit-dependent persons already, to this stop. So my idea tonight is to ask if you would consider thinking about a bus stop, an additional bus stop right in the heart of downtown Chestertown. And I scouted around and looked at a couple spots that I thought might be good for you to think about. It's your town, and I'm interested in what you think about that. But I looked at a few spots that would be appropriate and law-abiding for buses and not obstruct traffic. So I've got some pictures there that I took. I don't have a preference one over the other particularly, but my first thought was Park Row, because that's right down in the center of town. It wouldn't obstruct traffic on High Street. The buses move in both directions through Chestertown through here, and there are lots of parking spaces there that one was allotted as a stop for the bus, and the sign be placed. There are benches there. The first 3 pictures that you're looking at are 3 different areas along that sidewalk. So one's closest to the building, one is in the center of the street, and one is at the end near the intersection. A second spot that I saw was on Calvert Street, the rear entrance into the public library. Calvert Street seems to be a pretty main artery, and again, it wouldn't be a major obstruction. There's a nice curve that runs along between the 2 entranceways into the library. And the third place I looked at was the Coward Heights housing community, which I know is private property, and I have not even spoken to them, but there are a lot of residents that are living right in the heart of Chestertown. They may need transportation, and in the center of that community, they have a nice landing where all the mailboxes are, which would make a nice location for a bus stop as well in a residential area. And I have not talked to them, even asked their thoughts. This is just an idea I'm throwing out, but I think it'd be great to have people come right to the heart of town and be able to be in the heart of town and get out. And if it's something that you think you'd like, this is traditionally what our bus stop signs look like. It's beautiful, it's not high-tech, it doesn't have a touch screen, it works, it doesn't break down, it's not electronic, it's no LED, it's been working for state-of-the-art for the State Highway, the MTA, the USA, and what happens is a laminate gets placed over this that has the schedule, so Route 4 is the fixed route that comes through Chestertown, and it would say the approximate times that the bus comes through. This is what it looks like, and people mount them different ways. Usually the towns like to mount the signs themselves rather than have us do that, but we can work with you on that. Usually it's a metal standard signpost, or sometimes there's an existing an old meter post that used to use back in the olden days, and you can attach it depending on your public works person. But it's just an idea that I thought you might be interested in considering. We do thousands of miles and thousands of trips in Kent County and all 4 counties We love it, and our goal is to try and improve transportation for people who do not have transportation. And I'm just real happy to meet you, and I really enjoyed your meeting tonight. I feel like
Really?
seeing the yeah. Dorchester County.
Come on, be honest
No,
now.
it really has been nice to hear
Good.
that people are very caring about the community and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the work we do.
The options on Park Road, I mean, after all, that's only a block from your existing stop at the Dollar General.
Yes.
I'm wondering whether it wouldn't be better to look at maybe something near the parking lots on Cannon Street. It just doesn't seem to me like the Park Road option is going to help a lot.
It is close to Dollar General, and that's been brought to my attention. I was just kind of thinking of downtown. I've enjoyed coming to Chestertown downtown, and the post office, and things are very centrally located there.
Library.
It's just an idea.
What about Dunkin' Donuts right by your office? I mean...
How many parking
for a
spaces
bus,
do you need to do this?
That's an excellent question. Buses are a little wider than cars, and traditionally and officially, a bus either pulls up to the side of a sidewalk, which can take up a lot of space, or sometimes buses can pull in. You really don't want people to walk between parked cars to come out to a bus. And I kind of thought about that with Park Row, because you could allot a space and the bus could pull in, which is what it should do. In reality, I think what's going to happen is the bus is going to come up Park Row and people are going to come out. If you had a designated spot, if you had a designated spot as bus stop, probably the bus is going to pull up like this and people are going to walk to it this way. I really thought about in front of the Alexander Building when I first came. In fact, that's one reason we picked that office was because the magnificent parking behind that building. And when I first looked at it, I thought, well, if this was a bus stop, the bus could theoretically pull into that parking lot behind that building and kind of loop around. And we didn't want to do that to the town because it could be done, but it's tight. And I didn't want to take away any spaces because obviously that's a well-utilized parking space. So I did think about it. Now there's so much traffic on that street and there are a lot of cars parked there. I didn't want to take available parking away. That's why I eliminated that suggestion, but hey.
Isn't there a no-man's zone though, where Chestertown Pharmacy was?
That's the Chestertown Pharmacy, you got an alleyway there, so.
And it's across from social services?
More or less.
Yeah.
Well, it could be, yeah.
I can look at that again. There are, my husband uses a walker and I'm always in the midst of trying to get him out in a handicapped spot. And there are lots of obstacles, but I'm going to look at that spot again up there. Happy to do so if you don't mind using that street. You want to make sure that people can get out where there's not a telephone pole, a planter for a tree, and a broken sidewalk. But I'm going to look there. If you don't mind using the main street for a bus stop, I'm all for
When you
it.
say a designated spot, it would only be designated on the days, the afternoons that the bus is coming to Chestertown, and we wouldn't lose it 7 days a week.
Well, the bus does operate set.
Oh, I thought you said only-
That's the little
Our
cars.
particular service, the one-stop service, and when we use our small vehicles and when we do our travel training, right now is only 3 days a week. But Chestertown has public bus service 5 days a week, from 5:30 in the morning till late in the afternoon, every day. We make approximately 5 trips to Chesapeake College in Easton every day from Chestertown.
Wow.
Yes, we do. And you know what? I'll tell you, your lives will change. Hop on the bus with me and ride one day. I know we don't always have the opportunity to do it. I invite any of you to take a ride with me, and your lives will be transformed. I'm not kidding. We did this with Caroline County Commissioners.
Yeah.
They weren't particularly fond of transportation, and a few of them rode on the bus. They knew all the constituents on the bus. They asked everybody why they were on the bus. They were going to work, they were going to shopping, and they were going to the doctor, and they came back, and they were sold. So we did a lot of transportation.
We have a councilman that loves to ride on things, so he'll be happy to join.
Bus driver.
Pardon me?
What's the cost?
The general public fare for public transportation is $3 each way. If you happen to be a senior, 60 years and older, or a person with a disability, it would be $1.50 each way. You're going to ask me about children. I can't remember the age. It's in our wonderful schedule which I will give all of you. So children have a discounted rate. We do a lot of specialized services in addition to public transit. There are little packets there, but we do lots of levels of transit that you're not even aware of. Senior transit, adult medical daycare, Penn Center, and door-to-door services. And those, some are contracted, but for door-to-door services with my one-stop team, it may cost a little more because we're driving to Betterton or Rock Hall to pick someone up door-to-door, and that's determined by distance. In addition, if anybody's a veteran, we provide transportation at no cost to the veteran to go to medical appointments, mental health, behavioral health appointments, to a state-funded program, and that's to Perry Hall, that's to the VA hospital, it's to AA meetings, marriage counseling, whatever. So veterans provide at no cost. And there's a brochure there.
So how do we feel about this conceptually?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, we're all about transportation and public access.
I think what we could do tonight is endorse the concept and then maybe empower Bill and Case to work directly with you to decide on where it would make sense to have.
The sign, actually, the sign is an issue.
Yeah.
In those colors and all, and whatever building that we go on, but we have to figure that out, and where the bus can pull over the curb. But I think it's a great idea. We mentioned the foot of High Street, or I don't know what the demographics are, of the two stops in town, which is the most active?
I don't know the answer to the question, but I really can find out for you.
I wish you would, because I bet it's the Dollar General site, because people can walk to it from a lot of different communities, whereas it's a long walk to Roses. It'd be a different type of rider.
And don't forget the coming and going. You're exactly right in how you're thinking. We have an operations manager that would know the answer to a question like this, but it's true you're thinking of people here going, but there are also people out there coming. So there are people that are coming from the outside going to the Roses parking lot from other outlying areas.
Yeah.
Do you have many people that do their grocery shopping with your bus?
People do use our buses for grocery shopping. There is a limit as to the number of bags that you can carry, and people are very aware of that when they use the bus for shopping. And so that's why our service exists, the additional one-stop service. That service is available for seniors, people with disabilities, people traveling to work, and people who speak Spanish. So let's say a senior woman, maybe her husband's passed away and he did most of the driving, and she's a little nervous about driving and doesn't drive at all, and she needs to go shopping, and the bus, for whatever reason, does not work for her. We try to promote public transit first because it's most efficient financially. But if she can afford the door-to-door service, we could take her shopping in a vehicle, wait for her to be finished, and bring her back.
How many people does your bus hold?
We have, the standard bus would be 12, and it's called 12 and 2, which means 12 passengers, 2 wheelchairs, or sometimes there's a 16-passenger bus. But we do have different buses we use for different clientele, with adult medical daycare and Penn Center. And all of our vehicles, all of our buses are wheelchair equipped by law. Our small vehicles are not, but if someone needed door-to-door service, off hours, and they needed a wheelchair lift, that's my job as a mobility manager to sort that transit challenge out and make that work for that person.
Jay, would there be any interest?
That's what I was thinking, Bill, yeah.
A stop at the college where there's 1,200 kids, a lot of times they ask, how do we get?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, particularly international students, I mean, do you go to the Annapolis Mall, or do you?
We connect with Queen Anne County Live, which does now go to the Annapolis Mall. They didn't used to, and it just started that. Last year, we made a couple inroads with Washington College, and haven't followed those leads from last year. A lot of the students were not aware there was public bus service, and they could head to Easton or to Movies or now to the Annapolis Mall. I'd love to talk to Washington College about that.
Well, what I'd like to do is have us endorse the concept and then let our staff work directly with you to
It's your
figure out.
recommendation where you would like a bus stop, and if you'd like some statistics about ridership, I can get that for you.
And there's one other thing, I thought that with the excitement of our new police station at 601 High Street, on High Street, at the curb should be considered as a site. It just seems like it would be strategic if you go in circles from stop to stop.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can get together, my car's there, we can walk around and look at these places
Okay.
and what works best.
Okay,
I
Liz.
wanted to ask you if you had an anticipated destination for your riders when you were looking for the bus stop.
I do not have anticipated, you mean for the
The
new-
rider's
new-
destination.
No, the destinations are pretty set right now according to these schedules, but I was thinking about population clusters within the town of Chestertown is what I was thinking. Where we go is pretty firmly established, but it was clear to me there are a lot of residents that live right inside of Chestertown, and they have the farthest to walk to get to the bus stops. So,
Because we have the senior housing at Satterfield Court on Cannon.
Equally good, that would be equally good as 601 High Street because.
Yeah, you're right there, walk
A lot of
away.
people live nearby.
Okay, Liz, did you have something?
I just was aware, I think that you've been working with the people who are organizing the health fair.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for that. I think you're hopefully going to be able to provide some transportation for that event.
Yes.
And you have, you're going to be exhibiting there among the
we are.
vendors, right? You're exhibiting at the health fair. At our last meeting, council agreed to support that event, so.
very happy with that. We will be helping anyone who needs to get to that health fair.
That's great.
It's vital.
Thank you very much.
My
And
pleasure.
I think we endorse the concept, and we'll just got to do the groundwork now to find you a stop or two.
I love it.
All right.
Follow-up question real quick. I know this is an historic district, so is it procedure, city council, then historic district planning, or?
Just for the sign, the idea, I mean, the pullover space and all that, we're gonna have to work out, because it needs to be safe, it needs to be easy, and it needs to be not blocked during the day half the time when they pull over.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your
Okay.
time. I
You're
appreciate
welcome. Okay, are there any comments or questions from the audience? Yes?
Under the banner on the website, it says where the arts, education, and the environment meet.
Yeah.
Can we please add history and architecture to that comment? Please left out entirely.
Sam, do you want to comment on that?
So originally it was where arts, the entertainment, history, and the environment meet. We decided to get rid of history because that's implied in the historic Chestertown signature that is going to be incorporated as our brand. So we figured having history in there would be awfully redundant. And then also, it's just a mouthful where arts, history, the environment, and education meet. We needed something a little more concise, something that rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. And then architecture is something new entirely that I've heard. I've never heard that from anyone else before. So as it stands right now, where arts, the environment, and what's the third one? I should know. And education meet. That is what we're going to be sticking with for the time being.
You won't add one single word. Chestertown is 300 years old. You couldn't add history to that sentence.
Because our brand is historic Chestertown.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.